And it is Carne, presented by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston, 1015 Chicago Avenue. The show, backstage at Riot Fest 2019. This was recorded on the first of the 3 days, the Friday the 13th at Riot Fest. And I sat down and talked to Justin and Pat from the band Anti-Flag after they performed earlier in the day. And I forgot to hit record right away, but we started the conversation by talking about how many times do you hear people say, Anti-Flag, we need you now more than ever?
It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
I understand the natural tendency in that, and that I just feel like people, it's easy to feel isolated and alone, and it's, you know, I think a goal of Anti-Flag has always been to try to bring people who have similar ideas together and to build a community of people who, to help people feel that they're not alone whenever they're faced with a lot of adversity or ugliness.
Or shitty presidents and shitty politics.
Yeah. So in that respect, I think that's why that happens, but I totally agree with Pat that it really ultimately, you know, outside of the community building, it's really up to each and every one of us to speak out and to make our own statements and to resist in our own personal ways.
We've been a band for a long time, and we've also studied history and realized that nothing changes unless there's feet in the streets. If there's not mass organizations of people in the streets, things don't really change. It's just business as usual.
Right. This seems like the perfect environment. I mean, maybe you're already preaching to the converted doing Riot Fest again. I mean,
well, you preach to the converted, of course, but you also inspire people to be like, oh yeah, I'm not alone, as Justin was saying.
Community.
Yeah, you see people, you're like, oh yeah, I thought I was the only one who thought this in my parents' basement, but now I realize that there's thousands of people here who also feel the same way, and that inspires people and energizes them to continue their fights.
Let's talk about punk rock as an avenue for social information and social justice. We've got all flavors of punk rock. You know, I talked to No Parents earlier, and their brand of punk rock are songs like Balls and Fuck. There's room for that.
Yeah.
But, you probably grew up listening to The Clash and were inspired by those bands who kind of saw a message behind everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a very, very defined style of what we consider to be punk rock that is what we create, but that doesn't mean it's the only style.
Right.
And everybody has. There's nothing worse than somebody trying to write music or create something that they don't believe in, and people see through that. So, we all are writing. If you want to write about balls and whatever you want to write about, you go right ahead.
Yeah, and there's room in punk, I guess, for everything, right? To a certain degree, but I just sort of what was really exciting about coming up with the punk scene when we did, and it's still this way. When you travel around, there's all kinds of different scenes, and you know, in our particular scene in Pittsburgh, it was a scene where it was a group of people that were really interested in caring about people other than just themselves.
Right.
People that were like really interested in activism, whether it was animal liberation or taking on police brutality and racism. So those things really affected who we were, and you know, it was because there was that community of people that were interested in making the world a better place through punk rock and through the punk scene. You know, they were kind of like, we're starting with this little punk scene that we have here. That's what drew me to punk rock. That's what I found exciting about punk rock, and that's why we created the kind of band that we created. It was just the influence of the local scene that we came out of. So I think people find punk rock in different ways, and they're attracted to it for different reasons. And you know, people start different kind of bands for their own for what connects with them.
Yeah, and I think punk rock is rebel music. There's many different things to rebel against, but it's definitely rebel music.
Yes. Sorry,
Did we blow your mind?
My mind is so blown, man. That was. No, I had. You know how you have something and then it just it goes away. Staying on the political tip for a second. Is this coming year not the year for a third party?
Every year is a year for third party, and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth party. The U.S. And I love the quote that two parties is just slightly better than a one-party system, and that's what we're dealing with right now. There's two parties are not going to cover what we need to cover. There should be many more voices in the world. Third party could derail, and we could have Trump again, or it could be the best thing in the world. You never know.
Sure. 20 years since A New Kind of Army. Seems
sorry,
like 20 years since A New Kind of Army. It's been
Wow.
20 years, two
That's
decades.
hard to believe, yeah.
Right. I guess that's the question. Can you believe it?
That's an anti-flag record for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. That came out clearly 20 years ago.
It is hard to believe, yeah, because I remember very vividly making that record and what touring was like at that time, and it was a very different experience than it is today.
Better or worse? Harder, probably. Less affordable.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. And, life on the road is always changing, and life in general changes with ups and downs. And I think in a lot of ways it's better, and that I think that we understand as a band what we're trying to achieve better. I think that we're a better band, and we're better musicians and better songwriters, and I think that we understand how to take care of each other better and treat each other better and be more successful together. Just in the idea that we just have a way of functioning and working together for a common goal. Where in the old, when we were younger, you haven't really figured those things out yet. So it's harder to exist as a band in some ways.
Is American Attraction about as emblematic of the band as you can get in the modern day? Because I love that song.
You like that song?
Love that song.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
American Attraction. Is that about as emblematic of your music as you can get in the present day?
It's a good song. It's a little slow.
Well, I mean, I do think that, we're really just trying to speak to the current situation of distraction politics, and that, we have kind of a choice to make in our society right now, where we can go towards the worst instincts of our societies, or we can move towards the best instincts of our society. Obviously, we want to move towards the best instincts, and I think that includes diversity. I think that includes openness. It's really interesting, even like with a festival like this. Right now, there's a lot of talk about facial recognition at music festivals, and just opposing facial recognition and saying that this is a place that should be safe and open and support the ideas of openness, not the ideas of trying
police state and control of populations.
Absolutely. So, but we're always trying to grow as a band and trying to push ourselves to try new things, and I think that song is kind of emblematic of that. I would agree.
I'm going to take you to this. You can edit this out, but when we were on stage, off the stage right, there was a guy in camo on top of a platform, and I couldn't tell if he was a real person or a mannequin, or whether he was an active shooter, which I was watching, and I assume now it was a mannequin because he wasn't moving, but it was a really weird experience because the whole time I was watching it off this stage. Yeah. And I wasn't sure whether Riot Fest had paid to have
kind of
security system there. I was, through the first 3/4 of the set, I was trying to figure that out.
But how messed up is it that these are the things that go through your head on stage?
Yeah. Well, we were on stage when Paris went down, and so we were like, we weren't on stage in Paris, but we were on stage in Europe, and you realize that there is a fine line between safety and some jackass with a gun.
And we were in France, so we were on tour in France, and so we had to go play, the next night.
Yeah.
And there was talk about, do we do the show, don't we do the show, and all of a sudden security's really ramped up, and we're, issues that we hadn't faced before we're facing.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that the positive that came out of it was we decided to do the show, and it became kind of like a healing experience and cathartic for people, which was really, but it obviously it really changed the tone of the kind of show that we did, and the show became something very different. And we have friends, who we have friends in all kinds of bands, from basement bands to really big famous bands, and even just very recently, like one of our friends was playing a show, and they said that they'd had a bunch of threats called into the show, that there was going to be a shooter at the show, and making the choice: do you go on stage? How do we deal with this? And so I mean, it's really strange to be on stage and just be worried, like, am I going to get shot tonight?
Right.
And it's such a depressing fact that we're kind of at that place in our society, but also though the reality that most people that's obviously the exception and not the norm.
Right.
And that, you know, in general, most people are trying to work towards something positive and not something destructive in that way.
So there won't be an American Winter? Is this not a trilogy?
The American oh, no, we don't have an American Winter coming up. Yeah, we went spring and fall.
Yeah, we're
that's
done.
it.
We've
Yeah,
had
done.
enough.
Yeah.
You got a whole
Our emo phase is over.
We are done enough seasons now, yes.
time to move on. All right, so
Yeah.
what's on deck for Andy Flag? What's coming up?
Well, we're working on a new record, and hopefully it'll be out in the next couple months. And
Well, yeah, it'll actually be out in January.
are we allowed
Right.
to say that
Yeah,
yet?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I
they
don't-
were not. Yeah, hot off the presses.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what
I
the
never
fuck?
know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say about new records.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Oh
All right.
my God.
You're breaking the rules.
Cat's out of the bag.
So we talked about you 20 years ago. I walked out there at 1:30 when you played today. I couldn't get near the stage. People were, they were there for you. Not a surprise, but what do you say to those fans who've been with you for 20 years?
Yeah, well, I think it's so exciting that punk is really a community. You know, punk, hardcore, ska. I mean, it's and that to me is like, you know, when we started this band, Nazis coming to a show was a pretty typical thing, and you know, there were a lot of people that came together and said, "This is what we want this music community to be." You know, we want it to be a place that's free of racism, sexism, homophobia. You know, we want it to be a place where people respect each other and that we respect diversity, and that people who are trying to use authoritarian tactics and violence and bigotry, you know, we decided we wanted it to be a certain thing. And what's really exciting is that now over all of these years it has become that kind of community. And it wasn't just a flash in the pan. It's a really viable, tangible, important place. And a lot of people come here because this is home for them. This is a family for them. I mean, that's how it is for us. I mean, and it's so inspiring to me that I go to a show like these days, whether I'm playing it or whether I'm just going as somebody to see the actual bands, or it's so much more than just a music, you know, it's so much more about music or a festival. So and that's just inspiring. Being in a place like this today is really inspiring to see that, yeah, it's possible to create something if you really believe passionately about it.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for keeping the torch lit for 20 years, and we look forward
Thank
to
you.
January.
Hell yeah, great
That's
to meet you.
awesome.
Thank you.